in Emprender and Innovar. This is a segment that usually I do that in Spanish, but I am very happy to hold you here after the long time that we has been meeting for a huge amount of ideas. I recall my first experience in the SAP event long time ago in 2005, 2006, about the innovation games, build the product box.
Yes, and as I recall, your team won the award for the most innovative idea, and we were practicing on creating boxes for radios and what would be a new radio of the future and an internet connected radio. And I seem to remember that you won the prize, your team, and it was just so. And I feel like I won the prize because from that meeting we have become friends, and we've been friends now for more than 15 years. And it's just such a lovely experience, and it's a great honor to be on the show and with my friend.
Okay, well, that's very nice. I really enjoy all the things that you has been going through the innovation games, your book and your ideas, your histories, how you has been working with a lot of the leaders in the industry about how to create new products, new systems, new things. And really, innovation games for me was a learning experience that the people never believed that serious game was useful for business. And come on, boy, it has been a tremendous challenge and a very, very valuable experience.
Yes, it's kind of the same skepticism that you get in any really interesting experience. People, like when a kid is learning how to ride a bike, they don't believe that they can ride a bike, even though they see other people ride a bike, because they don't know what it feels like. They don't know what balance is. So as parents, we help our kids. And then eventually there's that moment where you just kind of shove the kid into space on the bike and they start pedaling and they realize, wait, I can do this. And innovation games and, enterprise innovation, sometimes it's kind of like that. You kind of just got to shove the company into the future. And then suddenly they start pedaling and they realize, oh, wait. And what's funny, right, is any company that's big, by definition, had an innovation that was successful when they started. And many times for those people, it's a return to their experience. It's a return to something that they did and they know. And that's kind of exciting. I mean, I know we have a lot of fun with startups, but with big companies and, startups, there's intrinsic innovation, right? There's innovation capacity that everyone really does have.
Yeah. I agree with you. And then when you switch a little bit and innovation games start to getting into this budget, participatory budget concept, then I really would like that you give us a little overview about that. What means that? Because I recall when you told me, hey, I was talking with the people in the San Jose City Hall, with the mayor and the people in the planning department, in how to help them to balance the budget. Usually big cities like San Jose, that is one of the 10 largest cities in the US, it's hard to see that playing games could be a fantastic way to solve a very complicated problem.
It is hard to see, and yet through experience, we find that it's easy to work. So what happened was a woman, Kim Walesh, who is, she's retired, but at the time she was the head of economic development for the city of San Jose. It was the luck of life, right? It was the luck of life that I met you at the SAP event. And then there was another luck of life. I was sitting next to Kim on a plane ride from San Jose to Dallas. And of course, when you're stuck next to someone long enough on a plane, you're going to start talking to them. And she's super nice. And we just start talking. And eventually she says, we've got this budget problem, and we get talking a little further. And kind of out of the blue, I said, look, I help large companies prioritize product features and budgets all the time. I can help the city of San Jose. And then I said, and I'll do it for free, because I knew I had people like you that would help me. And so, Kim said, okay, that sounds interesting. And we developed a process which is a variation of innovation games, where we would bring a group of people and give them 2 sheets of paper. The red sheet, which were items to cut in the city budget, and the green sheet. And the green sheet were things to fund. And we had a group of people who were from the city, the residents, and a facilitator like you. And we would give the residents money when they cut a budget item. So if they all agreed at the table that a red item had to go, they'd get that money, and we would distribute it equally to the participants. Now the participants had money so they could fund a green item. So we learned what items we could cut in the city budget and what new items we could fund. And that process evolved where eventually the city said, you know, we can give residents money directly, and instead of making them cut items, we can ask them how they would want the city to grow and how they would want it to be funded over time. Now that continued, so I'm continuing the story, and I started doing it in schools. And that's where I found a new passion, because what I could see when I was doing it in schools was how deeply the students loved the process, how they were learning about civics, about what is a good idea for the school, how to manage money, how to manage a budget, which some of the kids had never done before, had never seen before. So this amazing process that started in companies and went to cities is now in schools. Now, Jorge, I want to really talk about innovation around the world a little bit. It turns out that participatory budgeting is a Latin American invention. It's considered by the United Nations to be a major innovation in democracy from Porto Alegre, Brazil. In 1989, they started working on their budget using these kinds of techniques. So I think of myself as, in a sense, independently discovering a very powerful idea. And I think that that can happen in innovation, right? You have different parts of the world with different challenges, but it's interesting that when the challenge is based on design thinking, when the solution to the challenge is based on design thinking and an understanding of how humans work, many times the solutions that emerge are very similar, even though they were created in different parts of the world. And I think that that's pretty exciting, and it speaks to the more powerful underlying truth of why people want to participate, why people want to feel connected with other people, and how these techniques can really help cities and organizations, and now schools, be successful.
Yeah, and that's amazing. Sometimes we never believe that the Latin American and the Greek people, that in some way maybe was the base of these things, are part of how governments and how organizations can be very well motivated. I love this Socratic way of doing things by conversations. We are right now in a conversation, and I have a column that I write in the newspaper in Mexico and say, any innovation starts with a conversation. And that is very much true.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that, you know, one of the things, you've been married happily for a long time, so have I. And so one of the things, you know, that's different between, you know, successful marriages and relationships is that there are times where the opinion of other people really do matter. In business, those opinions matter. In our personal lives, the opinion of other people matter. And what we get from, you know, traditional advertising is the opinion of other people don't matter. It's only what you think that matters, right? You should go get your opinion and you should buy this thing. But in reality, human relationships are based on how other people really do feel about something. I would never, I might buy a pair of new shoes without talking to my wife. I would never buy a new car without talking to my wife, because her opinion matters. She's part of the family unit. And in businesses and in schools, we want to give our children those experiences. And it doesn't matter if your child is in India or Australia or, you know, Mexico City. those children have the same desires. They want to be heard and they want to know that their opinion matters. And that's one of the things that we're really trying to create with FirstRoot, that the opinion of other people matter.
That's correct. Yeah, the opinion of, and it's not just for learning and feel good. It's because you learn, you share, and you start talking with people. And it's an amazing when you are in a group and you start to fuel ideas, then one small piece ignite another idea and another idea, and that generates a complete full circle, then create a virtual circle, and is fantastic in some way.
Yeah, I recently read a study and in a book where a woman was talking about how to do collaborative learning, and to prove the idea that the group is better, she starts the class with a test, and everyone takes the test on their own, and she grades it, and she says, here's your grade. And then she offers them an option. She says, I'll let you retake the test and you get to work in groups of 5 people. Now, it's a collaborative test.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. You can keep your grade or you can keep the collaborative grade. And you have to choose before you decide to work together. And most of the time, about half the class, maybe a little bit more, chooses to work together. And the test scores almost triple because you know stuff that I don't, meaning the test scores improve, they get better. And then she doesn't count the grades and she throws them all out. She's like, don't worry, none of the grades counted individually or collectively. But then she says, now we're going to do a class project. Do you want to work alone or do you want to work with a team? And because they could see that taking a test together as a team dramatically improved the score, now the kids know that working together is a good thing on the project.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And in some sense, how did you start getting into this field? That's a good question. Where did you discover?
Well, my background is in software development, and I like to tell people I'm a very proud engineer. Of course, I get to live in Silicon Valley where we love to celebrate engineering, but I'm a very proud engineer. And I started writing code and building systems. And then I decided that I wanted to see if I could do more. And I started moving into management. And when I moved into management, I started to realize, wait a minute, there's other things that are really important. It's about constructing a team and then helping those team members resolve conflicts. So I really just started to try and do different techniques in my work as a manager that would help my team improve their performance. One thing led to another, as it often does, and I started consulting using these techniques. And one of my clients at Qualcomm actually said, oh, these techniques are so fun, it's like playing games. And her name was Joan Waltman. And I said, yes, Joan, it's like playing a game. And she said, well, we're getting so many innovative ideas at Qualcomm using these techniques, we should call it innovation games, and you should write a book. And I said, okay, that's a great idea. And so the name of the techniques I credit to Joan Waltman. And the book idea of just sharing them through a book, I also credit to Joan, who was very instrumental in helping bring these ideas to a broader audience.
And that ideas start to jump into using with the high level people. It was not just the programmers, and you start talking with some very valuable people. So I recall one of the conferences that you organized where you invite Alex Osterwalder to be with us, and we have a tremendous great discussion that was innovation games is not just to take the decisions, it's how to build the business in some way.
Yeah. And, I have, since that conference, I've developed a wonderful friendship with Alexander Osterwalder. I think he's one of the most brilliant thinkers of our time. He's written, and his Strategizer company has great books. I'm very honored. Alexander has included innovation games in many of his books, which is really exciting. And he is actually, full disclosure, he's an investor in FirstRoot. And he told me, it's pretty rare that a investor can align their social interests with financial interests. And I think that gives us an opportunity, you and me, to talk about when you're making an investment, you can always put the investment on two dimensions. On one dimension, it's what is the financial return that you are seeking for your money? We know that stocks are going to likely pay more than a bank, but it's also riskier, right? So you're looking at return and risk. But the other dimension that you can put your investment on is what impact do you want to have in the world with the money that you're putting in? And we're seeing the emergence of an entire class of investment known as impact investment. What impact do I want to have? Some people express that by focusing on the environment, and they want to invest in solar panels, or they invest in car companies that are electric. Some people are investing in food production and food equality, or promoting healthier diets. Some people are investing in education. And what FirstRoot is trying to accomplish is both teach financial literacy and promote positive democratic engagement. And these two things are really important to me personally. And what is exciting is when Alex made the investment, because we are friends, but he also, said he wanted a return on his money. Of course, he said it's an opportunity for me to both promote democratic principles in schools and financial literacy. And it's also a way for me to, achieve a financial return. I was wondering if it's okay with you if I could show two pictures that help explain some of the motivation of why I started FirstRoot. If it's okay.
It would be fantastic. Remember that we are in the new way of how to chat. We are in a coffee shop, and you have a computer in front, and you can share knowledge. And your computer may have thousands of slides, and you have the right slide how to convey the idea. And you don't need to worry to say, I'm going to send you by email later on.
Nice. So, I have been doing this for a decade, and I have quite a lot of experience. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to do next, let me turn off my update. But when I was thinking about what I wanted to do next, I read this book, and I would absolutely recommend anyone who's really thinking about our society and our future. It was a book that studied and assessed income and economic equality against health and social problems. And what the authors found was a very clear trend line, that the more unequal the society, the worse it performs on health and social problems. And so the US has one of the world's most unequal societies. And you can see that in these health and social areas, the US performs very poorly. We have, to be candid, we have the lowest trust society with the highest incidence of mental illness and drug and alcohol addiction, low social mobility, a high infant mortality, extremely high homicide rates in America. So we, and I think this is 2/3 of the problem. The other third of the problem we're facing is that civic engagement and trust in democratic institutions is dangerously low. And if you look at how people feel about democracies, this trend line is actually continuing to get worse. And I hate to share this, but it's true. As of 2018, Mexico was rated very dissatisfied with the government. The US isn't a whole lot better. And so our experience is that by giving the kids positive democratic experiences in their school, we actually have data from the University of Arizona that shows that when kids go through participatory budgeting in school, they go into society out of high school carrying forward a positive memory of what it felt like to be involved in civics, and they start to promote and get involved in their communities. So these two pictures are really critically driving why we're putting so much energy into FirstRoot. And I'm very proud of our development partner. Our development partner is a wonderful development organization located in Mexico, Yellow Me. Their primary offices are in Madera. I've known the founders there for a long time, and we have a fantastic development team. And it's really wonderful to see the cross collaborative behavior. I have developers in Bangalore and product management in Bangalore. I have developers across Mexico. I have marketing and some sales across the US. This is a global problem, and we need a global community to help solve it. One more thing that I'm going to add from this particular presentation is that this is a process that's endorsed by the United Nations. So participatory budgeting was invented in Latin America, and it's actually endorsed in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is, I think, very exciting for what we're trying to accomplish.
But that is quite interesting, because you are talking here that the connection between the economic development and the social development are very much hooked. And that's something that we always know, but we don't work together all the time.
That's right.
And these Sustainable Development Goals that has been for some years as a initiative from the United Nations is something that we need to understand how we can participate in that. One concern that I have about that is that these kind of goals appears to be that are very, very, very far away from me, and is not something that I can be part of them. And you are bringing into in a different direction, because you are talking about 6 of them that the people can be involved in some way.
That's right. We have to find a way to make the Sustainable Development Goals a real thing. And unfortunately, too many times when we get into, something as big as the United Nations, we get overwhelmed. And I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and I'm just going to talk again for a little bit. When we say we've got a social problem, like trust in democracy is low, or we have massive economic inequality, that is such an overwhelming feeling that it's easy to shut down, right? Like, what can one person do? I can't fix economic inequality across the world or across, a region. It's overwhelming. But what we're saying with FirstRoot is we don't have to solve every problem on day one. What we can solve is one school. And if we start with one school, we can do a second school. And if we do a second school, we can do a third school. And then the network of schools will start to work together. So what's really important is to realize that, yes, it can feel absolutely overwhelming to say we're going to solve, every school. But that's why, that's why our tagline is 1K, 1M, 1B. We want to put $1,000 into 1 million schools and see what happens when children are in control of $1 billion. And it's not going to happen overnight. I know that, but it's going to happen if we get one school at a time. And then that school, creates an opportunity for the next school, and so forth and so forth. And so I'm very encouraged by the progress we're making. I'm, of course, going to encourage every person listening to send me an email at luke.hohmann@firstroot.co go to firstroot.co website, download resources. We will find a way to help you bring these powerful techniques into your community.
But you say something that I love it. You know that I wrote a book that is called Think Like Silicon Valley, Being Anywhere. And you say you need to start for one school and then for the second. That's something that I learned here in the Silicon Valley. Is the people in most of the countries I have seen that everybody wants to solve the full wall enchilada project, everything. And the big problem is when you want to solve everything, you get stuck because it's so complex that you are not able to do anything.
Right. Yeah, I learned that lesson. I had one of the best bosses I ever worked for was a very famous man in Silicon Valley. His name is Daniel Lewin. And he was a member of the Mac team, and he did all sorts of really interesting stuff. And when I worked for Daniel, we were at a startup, and he used to say, you can't boil the ocean. Right? You can't start by boiling an ocean. But if you boil a pot, well, now you have a pot of hot water. You can do something with that. You can cook dinner, right? So we know that we have to get to 1 million schools to have the impact we envision. And keep in mind, there's only around 100,000 public schools in the United States. We have to be global if we're going to achieve this goal, but we can be global because you can actually scale a company by focusing on the larger problem and staying true to your mission and stay local. So I know we can do this because I know there's so many people who care about the same things that we care about.
Yeah. And that is one of the things I appreciate. And it will be very nice then if you describe what is FirstRoot doing. FirstRoot doing.
Yes. So here's exactly what we're doing. We have a software application that supports kids through participatory budgeting. So let me explain the participatory budgeting process from the perspective of a kid. It's you don't walk up to a school and say, we're going to give the kids money, because then it's not structured and the kids don't really know what to do and they're not learning. And of course, the parents would get nervous, right? The parents and the teachers, wow, what are you doing? So what we do is we give them a structured process. Step one is we design the process with the kids. They figure out what they're going to do with the money. Do they want to focus on school safety? Do they want to focus on school experience? Do they want more equipment for the school? Then they create proposals. It's the student-led project, and it's the students' ideas to create proposals. Then they refine the proposals into specific projects that could be constructed with the available money. Then they vote on it, and finally they fund the winning projects. Now, what this process does is it allows us to teach financial literacy. Can you afford the proposal? It allows us to teach civics. Who is going to benefit from that proposal? Is it the whole school or just a subset of the school? And this is something I know you know so well. You are an expert in design thinking. So it also teaches design thinking. We have a divergent phase of creating ideas. We have a sense-making phase of shaping those ideas. And we have a convergent phase of voting. And it's really just wonderful how things work. Now, I'm going to jump ahead for a second, and I'm going to point out that most ed tech that is out there right now is ugly. And it's awfully designed. And I know this because my kids are in high school. I've got 2 kids in college, 2 kids in high school, and I see the absolute junk that's out there. It's ugly, awful, hard to use software. So we started our design process with working with kids. We went to kids and we showed them, we asked them, what are the apps you're using? What do you like? How do you like to work? And then we built stuff that's inspired by the techniques that they're using. But you remember my old software, Jorge. You know that this is really different than what it was the last time you saw our software. This is beautiful. They understand the voting ballot. They have clear instructions. They know how to fund things, there's a really interesting navigation model at the bottom. And when they're done, they can actually see the results and they see the projects that they chose put to work. So our program consists of the app and curriculum. What the school provides is a little bit of money, and it doesn't have to be a lot of money. In the United States, somewhere between $2,000 and $10,000 is more than enough money. And most PTAs and schools have that kind of money available in the school budget. So it's not a lot of money to teach these really powerful concepts.
But I'm surprised because in the previous slide, you talk about 3 different areas. That is how to talk about financial literacy, how to talk about civics, and I don't recall the third one, but the 3 of them are not the ones that are very easy.
Well, they're not very easy to talk about because normal. I mean, you're a father and you're a business person. You know, when your kids get inspired by something, they learn all about it.
Yeah.
Right. And what you wish as a parent is, I wish I could find the key to inspire my kids to do everything. Well, we wish that too for employers, with our employees. We want them to be inspired to do their best work. But finding that key is really hard. For kids, that key is their idea. If you let kids create and pursue their ideas, it's so much easier to create the key that inspires them to do great work. And to me, that's what we're doing in this process. We're helping kids be inspired to do their very best work by giving them the key that lets them build out their idea, their understanding of the problem.
Yeah, and that's quite of the challenge in some way. And if you do that by playing in a way that you are watching and see some nice results at the same time, you are breaking a lot of paradigms in the sense that the people don't need to be thinking that it's going to take in a course of financial literacy. It's something that everybody that I know is say, oh, I took one of them and I really was at the middle of the way slow. I don't like it. I get boring. But when you are talking about building something that you manage the money, that's very interesting in a way that how to do. Here is a guy, Rafael Martinez, that is watching us, say, I would like to share the presentation. I would like to review that and how to tropicalize in Mexico. It looks like a great idea. It's not just to share the slide. It's you can sit with him, with your team in Mexico, do the tropicalization. And sure, Rafael, that's the purpose. Look is the thing is looking how people can use that in a way that is used everywhere around the world.
Yeah. And in fact, one of the wonderful things about having such a fantastic Mexico-based development team is our app is localized in many languages right off the bat, because I believe in building software globally. So the app supports Spanish, Mexican Spanish. I know there's differences and variations, but it supports Mexican Spanish right away. But it also supports, we've got it localized in Hebrew, in Punjabi, in Portuguese, in German and French, Italian, in Swedish. So we're building out this as a global opportunity. And I'd be happy, I'll post the website, I'll post the slides into my LinkedIn profile. Connect with me on LinkedIn and get the slides, and you can adapt them and use them. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, the only thing, let me give you a little joke about that. You said you have a development team in Mexico. You have a development team in Mérida, and Mérida is in the south part of Mexico. You know, my parents are from there, and we always joke that it's a different country. It's not Mexico.
Oh, okay. Well, that's like where I grew up, because I grew up inside of Buffalo, and we always joke, because people are always like, oh, Buffalo's part of New York State. And we're like, no, New York City and Buffalo are very, very, they're like different parts of the world. Right. And so, yeah, everyone, everyone has those kind of family experiences. But I tell you what, I can't wait to start traveling again, because my development team is showing me pictures. It looks beautiful and I want to go.
Oh, no. I can tell you, my two sons invest a huge amount of time in Yucatan when they were kids. They learn how to do scuba diving. They learn how to do fishing and all that stuff, because it's a beautiful area. You will enjoy it. And the food is an amazing thing. It's something that you are not going to regret to be there.
Yes. And you know me, and you know how much I like to eat. But I would say the other part about teaching these things, right, is when you're teaching a life skill, if you really think about it, being a civically engaged person, being a member of a democracy, it's not about the facts and the structures of like what's a judge and what's a court and what's a mayor, and what's a vote. That's only part of the question, right? The structure. The other parts of a life skill are the understanding of your values. For example, in my family, I have 4 children. One of my children is conservative. Now, I don't mean he's conservative like I support Trump conservative, because he doesn't support like that kind of conservatism, but he's more conservative. He will express his political opinion thoughtfully, but as a conservative. And of course, I tend to be, personally, I'm a little bit more liberal. And we have very interesting discussions at dinner, but every now and then I'll take a step back and I'll talk about, Cress, we're talking about our values, and our values motivate our behaviors, and our behaviors are how we vote. So you need to read a ballot. That's a skill. So a life skill contains 3 components: a knowledge level, like what is the structure of our democracy; a skill, the ability to compare candidates and positions; and an understanding of who we are, our values and our disposition. Those 3 things are both about civics and financial literacy. Financial literacy, I need to know what an interest rate is. I need a skill, the ability to compare investments, but I need to know disposition. Am I more risk averse or am I more risk tolerant? If I'm extremely risk averse, I'm probably not going to have a lot of stocks, and I'm certainly not going to own stocks in risky companies. If I'm more conservative, I may not have as many stocks, and or if I'm more risk tolerant, maybe I do invest in some riskier companies. For example, I know there's a lot of energy around Bitcoin right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's investing in Bitcoin is going to really reveal the kind of tolerance for risk that a person has, because it's been going up and down. And I'm not trying to make a statement on whether you should or shouldn't invest in Bitcoin, right? That's not my opinion. It's more of just a statement of, well, what kind of person are you? And what kind of investments do you feel comfortable with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's quite interesting. And learning that into the very easy way that you are showing here is much more valuable. And one of the things is how you take risk in a way that you can create value, and what are the kind of elements that these kids in the school figure out, because they can create new methods of learning, new methods of teachings, new methods of how to share ideas. And one of the amazing things is we need to believe that the creativity in the young people is as big as in the elders, without any big bias in some way.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things where I'm going to use a different concept here. This is about trust. If I walked up to a school and said, we're going to give them $1,000, no one would be too worried, right? But if I walked up to the school and I said, we're going to give them $1 million, right? I get to give the kids $1 million. The adults are going to get worried. And when you look at that worry, it's based on a lack of trust in the kids. And that's okay, right? It may not be appropriate to trust kids with that much money. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that trust can be earned over time through consistent patterns of relationships and behaviors. And as we are making these kinds of changes, right, a Silicon Valley type of change in education, what we're really saying is, why don't we start with a little bit of trust, and then trust can build over time into bigger elements of trust. And that's kind of an exciting thing when you think about it. How do I build trust in a social system? Well, it's through repeated behaviors and through repeated mechanisms of interaction. That builds trust.
Mm-hmm. And that is part of the thing. Then how I try to understand the application and the FirstRoot in some way. The application is one part, but you have a training course, you have a program to onboard the people. What is all that complete sequence in some way?
Yeah, well, to be careful, because I don't want to over promote what we have, because we're a startup. We're still building some of this out, right? So we have an app that people can use, and it's also available, of course, on a website, because we have to be able to support kids coming in. Not every kid has a smartphone. We know that. So there might be a Chromebook in the school or a tablet or some other component that lets the kids have access to this. But nonetheless, we have a platform and a solution, and it runs on different devices, et cetera, et cetera. Then the next thing that we have is curriculum for the teachers. So the curriculum helps the teachers introduce participatory budgeting and then use it to teach financial literacy and civics. Now, those two are the main components. Now, over time, we're going to have to add other things, which I don't even know yet, because that's the fun of being a startup. You don't have to have every single answer up front when you start. You have to have enough of the answers to get started, but you don't have to have every answer. And so some of this, we'll learn. And I suspect that there's going to be regional differences. I think what the schools will need in Mexico will be different than what the schools need in Australia. And that will be different than what the schools need in Pakistan or say South Africa. And so our goal is to build the platform, but not overbuild it, so that we can listen to what people need, and then we can add those things that people need into the app over time.
But in some sense, let me brainstorm in that direction. How much is feasible for people that are interested in building that local ways of doing things to be part of this organization, like local communities, and develop parts on top of whatever you have been doing? Because in some way you are building a platform more than a full perfect solution that is going to do everything perfect for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to tell everyone that that's the next big thing for me as a CEO. I was talking to a friend today and on a podcast, like not unlike this interview. And they said, what does the CEO of a company work on? And I said, well, we find the part of the company that's weakest and we work our best to shore it up. And I would tell you that that's where we're weakest right now. We don't really have a good community platform. So people just need to contact me directly, and we'll make sure that you know how to get me. But from there, we're going to build out this community together. This is a global opportunity. It needs a global community, and we're going to build that out together. That's the best I can say right now. I don't have a lot of detailed plans. Like I don't have like community.firstroot.co up and running. In the next few months, we will add that community. We'll probably start with a conference. So I'm planning on a conference in a couple of months in June. We're going to have a global conference, bring people together. From the conference, we'll continue with our community, and then we'll hopefully build out a community that enables local structures to be successful. we're working on that. So if anyone wants to help, I'd be really happy.
Well, it's Fabiola Terry, that is from Mexico, living in, I guess she's living in Vancouver, and is part of the community for innovators in Mexico, that has been doing a lot of research into how to build communities. I will say, why not, Fabiola, you jump on that, help with the team of people that has done a tremendous good job in how to build a community of innovators in Mexico, and share their experience and find some people that may be very much interested in help you to develop this community.
I would be honored. And I, you know what? I know that those people are out there. I know that there are people who will be more than happy to help, because the problem is affecting everyone. I think I didn't say this about the research, but I want to add one thing about the research that I referenced. Economic inequality affects rich people negatively as much as poor people. That's one of the more fascinating research results. People think, oh, I'm rich, it's not my problem. Well, if you actually look at the data, even rich people are negatively impacted because of economic inequality. So we want to, when I look at this data, right, of this slide, what's really powerful is rich people in America are more, have lower trust and higher mental illness than poor people in more equal countries, right? Just because you're rich doesn't somehow make you immune from these problems. Rich people are affected, poor people are affected, society is affected. So I would really love the opportunity to work with other people on bringing this to light and bringing this building out the community and making the community happen. It would be fantastic.
Yeah, because the goal is very appealing, and I can imagine that running this program in one school is going to be, as you say at the beginning, the first school, how that is happening, how the people get engaged, how the people get inspired to say, hey, the school next door is doing great, how I can be one of them. And then the second and the third and the fourth, they start to pop up. And that is one of the kind of things that here in the program in QuieroAprenderA is one of the things we are trying to share, how great ideas like this one it happens, how is developed. And the most important things is every time that you talk about an idea and a result, it can be improved, can be done better, and can grow much further. And instead of sitting to say, I already did everything, is you are just starting to do the next step.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, feedback, Silicon Valley, I mean, you know that one of the positive outcomes of doing things like A/B testing is testing with the market, building out things iteratively with customers. You know, we want to have more of the, you know, there's a lot of negative outcomes from social media, but we want to take some of those techniques that are positive and use them in building out things like ed tech solutions and other solutions that really help our children be successful. And I think we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there is no question about that. You really can, and that should be the kind of things that should happen as much as possible. And I am looking to see how FirstRoot keep going. And we're going to have a Spanish version of this talk with the people in the development center in Merida this week, and having that a conversation and share that in Spanish in a way that can be followed by people in Spanish in all Latin America, Spain, and really focusing how this can be done much better than ever, than we should imagine about that.
I'm excited. I mean, you know, this is a global problem, and we need to have a global mindset for the solution. It's absolutely clear.
Well, you already put the global mindset in that. You are starting to do this thing. And the question here is how to keep the follow-up of that global idea. And that is a big challenge of communities, that is having the first experiment. It should be very interesting when you have the some critical mass here in the US or anywhere in the world, how we can share that in another program in the future to show the people what is happening, what are the results, and by all means, is everybody believe that a startup is like IBM that started in a huge and has office everywhere in the world. No, you have an office here in Sunnyvale. You are doing these things. You already has jumped into different places, but it's still been a long way to go.
That's right. And, I think, you were talking about the Silicon Valley mindset. You dream really, really big, and then you take just small steps. And that way you're guided. It's kind of like when you're, when you're hiking you use the North Star for guidance, but we have never traveled to the star, right? We dream of traveling to stars one day, but we still haven't done it. And yet we still use North Star as our guidance all the time. So you need a North Star to be building something meaningful. And then you don't have to step there, get there in one step. You can take a whole sequence of steps to get to that North Star.
That's correct. Okay, well, I am very surprised about this idea. I really enjoy it, and I am open to keep talking forever about that. But we need to give the people a lot of things in the future and say how it can be done very soon, and say is how to start doing in the first school in Mexico. We are looking to people that are interested in how to help you. That will be fantastic if they connect with you. They start with you, with the team in Mexico, how to start it, or anywhere in the world. We are glad to doing this in English than most of the people around the world can start follow up in anywhere, any place they are.
That's right. And we're talking with a couple of schools. You've introduced us to a couple of schools, which I'm very thankful for. We will get this done, right? And I know that schools are dealing with a lot of challenges with COVID, and it's not easy for the schools to, do things all at once and all that kind of thing. But we will get this together, because when those schools are ready, we will be here. We will be here for them. I will be here for all the listeners. It took time to build out innovation games, Jorge, you know that, right? But if you're focused and you have a good solution, it will win. And I know that sometimes people don't say that. Like, they're always like, oh, you got to have good marketing. Well, yeah, you have to have marketing. Of course you have to have marketing. You have to have sales. You have to have everything in the business, but mostly you need to have a good solution to the problem. And participatory budgeting in schools is a fantastic solution to the problems that we're facing regarding economic equality, financial literacy, and civic engagement. And if we do this, we can create opportunities that we don't even know about, because our kids are creating the ideas. And we don't have to know about the ideas, and we have to trust our kids, and we can do that.
For a typical program, how long it takes?
Yeah, our experience is that it takes between 6 weeks and 3 months. So between 1.5 and 3 months. The duration is a function of the number of kids. For a smaller school, it's going to be run more quickly because you have fewer ideas, fewer kids, fewer things to process. For a bigger school, you're going to have more ideas and more things to process, but it's usually about 6 weeks to about as long as 3 months.
Okay, well, we should be looking about that, how to start the first projects in that direction, get the blueprints from you, and how to people can start doing that kind of projects. And we know that we are almost at the end of the education year, but it's the good time to be thinking how you are going to start the next year.
It is. Absolutely. And I'll leave everyone with one other thing. We're establishing a fund, the FirstRoot School Fund, and we're working with corporate donors where we're going to take money from corporate donors and we're going to find schools that need help, and we're going to donate the money to the school under one condition: the kids are in control of the money. So I'm happy if someone can talk to me if they're facing economic hardship, and a lot of people are facing terrible economic hardships because of COVID. But if someone were to email me, and you can make sure it gets presented in Spanish correctly, but if you email me and you can commit to doing a program over the summer, maybe the FirstRoot School Fund can help you fund it. And reach out to me, and we'll try and find a way to make a donation to your school so that the kids can use it. And you might be our first school in Mexico.
And summer is good time. 6 weeks to 12 weeks is good enough time. Have a very fun time and enjoy, because for one side, you say the people is struggling for COVID, but this thing is also a way to help how to get out of the struggling.
That's right. Exactly right. And so that's why we started the FirstRoot School Fund. And we think that that's part of our benefit corporation. So we're not a nonprofit and we're not a for-profit. We're a benefit corporation. And by being a benefit corporation, we have a stated goal to create a public benefit in the world. And our public benefit is to promote financial literacy and civic engagement. And if a way to do that is to help fund some schools, then that's what we're going to do.
That sounds great. I really love it. And in fact, tomorrow I'm going to talk about a social entrepreneurship in one online course in Latin America, and that will be my first target. I take by myself the compromise, the commitment in how to spread the word about FirstRoot.
And I love you for doing that. And I'm so thankful that you are. And I hope every listener joins you and me in this process. Everyone knows a school that needs help. Everyone knows a kid who needs an opportunity to improve their financial literacy. And again, this is a universal problem. So everyone, I hope, is somehow open to helping out.
Okay, let's go for it and chase that, and come back later to share the experience, the good things, and the success cases.
I would love that. I will book a follow-on appointment with you for the fall.
Okay, I am very happy, and let's talk to Fabiola to say, hey, you are ready to help somebody in Mexico talk about innovation, as long as they help you to bring the first schools in Mexico.
That would be fantastic. It would be so exciting to do that. And maybe I can travel and we could go to the school and say hi to the kids. I think that would be amazing.
I would love to. I am been without traveling in a plane for almost a year and a half. I feel very rare.
Yeah, that's different for people like you and me, right? We're used to traveling and going out and being with people. So it's tough.
Yep. Okay, well, that has been a great conversation. I wish you the best of luck and a lot of success, and we keep in touch.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and we say bye to the audience.